All right, everyone, welcome to the Rovertime podcast number 23. Today we have myself, we have Lex, Minding Freedom, Crow, Ryan, Sirius, and Stan. So, Eminem, king of crap, I mean rap, I mean crap, started a fight with Donald Trump with his... He had a one-sided rap battle that was actually really terrible, and we're going to unpack that. But everyone else here, you saw that video, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Unfortunately, yes.
And I mean, there's for anyone that didn't see it, it's devoid of any argument. It's devoid of any actual effort and thought, and it's actually. I'm not even into rap, so I don't. But I could tell, like Steven Crowder said, it's very lazy writing, and overall was really stupid. But
Is anybody else here actually a fan of Eminem? Because I am. I really like him.
I used to be.
Artist.
I mean, I
somewhat.
The self-titled, Stan, I think is a fantastic song. Some of his, I used to be, but I honestly, it's been.
I don't think he's done.
Quite a while since I.
Yeah, he's really.
Frankly, he's one of those guys where it's like, and I know he's young, but it's like, oh, he's still alive, because I hadn't heard. It's like you haven't heard or seen anything from him. I mean, at least I hadn't, and that could be because I'm out of the loop. But
that's the thing. Is it one of those it was better
you
with drugs?
You haven't heard from him, so that means he's that big stretch, but okay.
Well, I mean, either that or he just or maybe he just retired, and you know what I mean? Because some people do. It's like, hey, I made my money. I'm good. I'll ride off into the sunset. And this is his grand return to the public.
No, he's had a few albums that did not do well.
Oh, has he?
So,
I have no idea.
Yeah. His last album especially was pretty well panned, but I mean, it wasn't horrible. But that's the thing. It was the same thing as the Trump rap. It was kind of regurgitated. There wasn't really anything original about it. It wasn't bad. The beats were okay because he has the ability to source really good beats, but he's not doing those anyways. He never has. So
no.
His lyrics were just a lot of retreading and a lot of repeating, a lot of remixing.
That's the unfortunate thing, because he used to be very, especially with the lyrics, he used to be really good.
Yeah.
And, like I said, this.
Now, me and Minding both prepared a rap rebuttal.
Oh, God.
And I'm going to tackle some of the problems with it. I'm going to turn my camera off so you can't see me do this.
Yeah, I think me and Stan were trying to fill an entire hour with our discussion about Eminem to avoid having you guys do this. But
I'm still second guessing myself here.
Nope. You signed up for it.
If you could talk me out of this, I'd be happy.
You signed up for it, you crouch shit.
What Minding you should do is do it in angry German speak.
I didn't write anything in German, so I can't do that.
Oh,
take it away, Mark.
All right, I'm gonna try not to mess up. All right. So Eminem, now a 44-year-old man, came up with the plan to attack a president, put a dent in the cohesion of Americans by drawing a line in the sand in front of his audience and estranging half of his fans. But half the time, this has-been's half-baked rhymes fell flat. Not to mention the fact that they lacked proper context. He missed the mark and dismissed the truth, which is that this protest in the football biz is based on nothing more than a false premise. It screams of police brutality, but your local PD just wants to be seen as PG-13. But MS-13 and Black Lives Matter, Antifa, and in particular the latter, are causing a clatter all over the streets of the best country ever, adding to the rampant crime that's already been around for some time in the cities organized by the Democrats that they assigned, mainly along the coastline or where black communities are confined and regarded as voter gold mines. Yeah, there's bad interactions with a fraction of cops. For that, we share compassion. But to our satisfaction, they do a hell of a lot of good action, considering the circumstances. And as far as our POTUS being touted as a nuclear war lover put on notice, that's bogus. My bullshit detector checked this hysterical lecture and saw it for what it was, pure conjecture, a gesture of ignorance and surely a projection of liberal manipulation to the left's elation, a disgrace to our nation. Eminem, when you choose to get used by fake news and their flawed views, you're wrong to accuse a man who's filling bigger shoes of being a bitch because he thinks for himself. That rant wasn't original. You're just cynical. You're the pinnacle of what it means to be a political puppet, so predictable, it's pitiful. If you're really concerned, try to learn to discern arguments from propaganda, earn your way into the debate to help better our state. And stop speaking in riddles. Be civil. Start reaching towards the middle. Can't try to sizzle and belittle half your viewers to win them over. It'll never force your opinion to be transmittal. I'm not one for rap and all, but here's my final line, y'all. Build the wall, nice and tall. MAGA, MAGA, MAGA. And that's it.
It was awesome right up until the last line. I give it to you. That was good stuff.
I was going to say that, Mark.
You might as well call impressed. That. You might as well call it the California Wildland because it was fire. Oh,
I'm sometimes good with words. Yo, but that accent, like the booja booja bear type thing, that's like that came out of nowhere.
Yeah, but honestly,
I don't.
Honestly, I don't agree with the liking cop shit. You know, look up civil asset forfeiture and then tell me with a straight face they used to like cops afterwards. I mean, honestly, it's ridiculous.
That's all about the management and administration of police. That's not actual cops. Like
no cops just straight up rob you.
No, that's them funding their own administrations. Like, this is the thing. You get systemic corruption in these systems is really bad, but the actual guy on the street is not there, like, just stealing shit. Like, that happens.
No, that's what's... It's just a cop straight up robbing you and putting your property on trial.
It's not. Like, that's the thing, though. Like, you can say it like that, but it's just... It's hyperbolic to put it in those terms. Like, that is the effective thing. That is the de facto thing that happens, but it is because of a system we put in place where this is how police get funded, because we have horrible pension systems that defund our states, basically. So yeah, they feel like they need this to actually do law enforcement. That's the flaw we have in it, is that they don't have actual sources of funding, and we created this war on drugs to exacerbate all of that.
What are you talking? They have plenty of funding. They have plenty of pensions.
No, that's the thing. They don't. Like... They have plenty of pensions, yes, but it defunds the rest of the state. You can look, California is like the perfect example of this, where most of their funding is going now to pay for a pension system that is horrible. So now police and education are staying flat while populations go up. That means they have less money to actually put into enforcement. That's where civil asset forfeiture came to be, and speeding quotas and all of the other weird ways that we incentivize police to do bad things. And that's all administrative. That's not line level cops. That's not the guys going out on the street and doing the actual police work that are doing good work. That's commissioners, police chiefs, mayors. That is where that focus should be at, because the guys in the front lines are just enacting policies that they're being told to, and they're trying to do the best they can.
Dog.
Sorry, that was my
well-timed sound effect.
Yeah, I'm reading the comments. Thanks, guys, for liking my rap. I channeled my inner Eminem white boy.
Now, I wonder, though, so we were talking how Eminem's use of his rap seems to have sort of flattened out. It's no longer quite as biting or quite as much of a social critique. Would you say that's just because he's so far removed from the thing which inspired him to articulate himself in a rap manner?
Actually, yeah, you're right. I saw some rebuttal videos of people that were his fans doing like rap responses of their own, and the guy was saying his inspiration used to be like the mainstream media, and now he's pretty much being a bitch of the mainstream media, and it's kind of reversed because he used to be, you know, against the man, and now he's kind of with him just because it's against Donald Trump.
I mean, isn't that sort of a positive for him, I guess? Like, he went from being very much outside the system to now being very much a portion of it.
I do find the one thing I find almost, I hate to say, kind of disingenuous, for his lack of a better word, is, I mean, really, let's be honest. How many of his fans do you really think are Donald Trump people to begin with? So him saying, choose him or me, is not exactly going out, in my opinion, going out on any kind of a limb, because I'd be willing to bet that most of his fans are would be not for Donald Trump.
I don't know about that, because here's the thing: you look at 20 to 30-year-old white men. That's Eminem's prime demo. Like, probably a little bit skewing older than that, just because of the ages. So think about that. Like, those guys who were fans of Eminem growing up, a lot of them are middle America, blue collar guys who like rap because they grew up with it. And at the same time, they became MAGA guys because they saw, the Democratic Party destroying their industries. So it's entirely possible there's a really good cross-section there, and he may feel like he has to do something about that. He's going about it in a bad way.
Well, I mean, the funny thing is, his going about it is, for lack of a better word, is essentially choosing to tell them, okay, well, if you are one of these guys, F off. It's like, okay, well, I mean, if someone that was on the fence, as it were, about, liking your material and this is your choice, well, okay, knock yourself out. That's your choice. Who am I to? I mean, I don't think it's smart. Anytime you are going to essentially tell your fans, tell anyone who might like you, to put people in an ultimatum, it is never going to work out, in my opinion, well.
Yeah. I mean, we see that Hollywood right now is tanking in terms of revenues.
Yeah. And I even saw that, what's his name there? God, I keep forgetting the freaking guy's name. One of the late night, Seth
Meyers.
Seth Meyers did the same thing. It's like, dude, okay, I wouldn't be willing to bet you don't have that much leeway to be telling people to F off, but whatever.
I mean, not just him, like all the late night guys, like Trevor Noah, Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Kimmel.
Every time Trevor Noah.
Oh my God, Jimmy Kimmel! Oh my God,
I keep forgetting that Trevor Noah is even still on the air. Every time he pops up, I'm like shit. Yeah, he still has a show, doesn't he? I mean, one of the most unfunny. I mean, you can be dry and be funny, and then you can be Trevor Noah, and it's like, dude, you are
drier than sandpaper. My God.
Yeah, because Steven, most of you probably don't know Stephen Wright, but Stephen Wright was a comedian, and he was very dry, but he was also very funny. And Trevor Noah, it's like, dude, you are just no.
I'd say everyone else on their list is funny, but him. I mean,
Jimmy Kimmel's a fucking prick.
To me, the most funny thing is every time I see some of those late night guys, the first image that comes to my mind is that of a televangelist, like someone who's preaching all the time. Some of the televangelists do it with like Christian messages and calls for donations and stuff. But like their first priority is Christian messages, and they do the same thing but with left-wing politics.
Well, that sort of speaks to the change in how information was disseminated. So if we go back, like, let's say 40 years, and we're talking, was it Jimmy Carson, who would have the show, and the other late night things, they sold themselves as the conscience of America, as the trendsetters of America. And so it would seem that in our sort of modern context, television and legacy media is trying to double down on that. But because there's alternative venues where you can get your information, it sort of skids sideways on them. But they continue to double down on it because it's what they know.
It's all they know. Yeah, I mean, and again, of course, for me, most of the time, I know, I'm long in bed before those shows come on. But I can honestly say I have not watched any of those shows. I really can't tell you the last time I watched any of them. Might have been David Letterman's last last show. That might have been the last time I ever watched any of them.
Well, this is where I really miss Craig Ferguson, because he was still legitimately about the comedy and more about talking to people, even though everything he said was scripted too. I found him funny. I can't say which out of the major late night show personalities I find funny anymore.
Yeah, it's...
Yeah, as soon as I saw how Jimmy Kimmel was just so fucking ignorant about guns, I just thought, no, fuck you, man. He's just...
Well, I especially love, I mean, I don't know if any, I mean, this might be before most of your time, but Jimmy Kimmel did a show in the 90s called The Man Show. And I will say I enjoyed it very thoroughly. It was very funny, but it was about as non-PC a show as you could ever get. I mean, at one point, they went out onto California, onto the beach, tried to get people to sign a petition to repeal suffrage for women. He did routinely blackface mocking Karl Malone of the Utah Jazz. At one point, they went to a mall and did a thing where they were trying to convince women that eating chocolate helped them lose weight, and convinced a woman to put a chocolate suppository in at that very moment. Yeah. So I tend to think, Mr. Kimmel, I know your past, and you have no reason. And like I said, keep in mind, I found that show very funny. I enjoyed it. Oh, and by the way, one of the primary things they also had was scantily clad women called the Juggies dancing around 99% of the time.
They finished it off with women jumping on trampolines. Like, this is the thing.
Yes, women jumping on, exactly.
Well, and the co-host was Adam Carolla. Like, that's the thing. At the end of the day, Kimmel comes from a very different place, and I wonder how much of it is him, the Hollywoodification, because Carolla came up through it, and he's from the area, so he was more inoculated to it, and so as he's gotten older, he has kept vastly more of his libertarian bent, whereas I think Kimmel has, he's gotten a lot of money. He, if I remember correctly, he came from the Midwest. He came up, and now he has a family, and obviously, like, he's got a lot of personal stuff that's, I think, informed him. But he's seen all of it through the lens of, I have a ton of money and I don't have to actually worry about any of this. And I wonder if he's getting that same sort of rich man's guilt. You look at the people who create wealth in ways that don't actually involve contributions to society. It's generally seem to have a problem with it. Hollywood's huge on this. The software industry is also huge on this. Where like guys that they made something cool in their basement like this one time, and suddenly they're billionaires, and they tend to have this guilt complex about it that they've got to do something for the world. Like you can see it with Elon Musk today. Gates is the same way, or was for a while. I think Gates has sort of started to curb on it, and he's actually trying to just do cool stuff and help the world. But they feel like they have to change the world to justify what they've gotten out of life. And it's like, that's not how it works, guys. No. Because you look at guys like Leno, who came up through, kind of the hard way and built themselves up and got their money very slowly, compared to guys like Kimmel, who went pretty much from being a very C-ranked guy to suddenly projected up into the upper tier of entertainment. Totally worthwhile. Like, he did it the correct way, but he definitely went from who the hell is that to, oh, you're on national TV in a late night slot, kind of all of a sudden, and not with a huge amount of success in the middle of it to explain it.
I first learned about Jimmy Kimmel when he did that fake viral video with the girl falling on the glass table on fire and all that or whatever.
Remember that one?
I don't remember that.
He faked a viral video, and then that's where I learned of him from.
I do.
You remember that?
Yep.
Well, I don't actually remember that, but I'm just sort of thinking, it's like, so when we're talking about people like Eminem and Kimmel and whatnot, what do they do with their pasts? So how is it that they managed to divorce themselves so entirely from the thing which got them there? Is it that they go, that was my persona at the time, and I am now an artist, and therefore I move on to other things and don't judge me by what I did before? Or is it just simply that having so many people around you telling you that you're the best, it is so infectious and so self-destroying that you can't help but start to become preachy with other people?
I mean, all of them timed out to their kids, like almost to a T. You could look at the moments where they started to make their shift was the moment they became fathers, like in a very real sense of the word. Not just had kids, but became fathers. Eminem's shift was largely when he gave up drugs. He started taking care of Haley and the other one that he adopted, or sort of adopted, whatever. Kimmel, it was when his child started having medical issues. That's when you started seeing a huge veer to the other side of the thing. And that, I think, would be the point they would define as the change in their lives. And it's a justifiable one. You understand it, right? When you look at it that way.
But normally wouldn't fatherhood inspire conservative mindsets? But because they're not doing like the average job, it's different for them.
I think it just inspires a change in outlook. It gives you the license to reset your worldview. I think that's one of the major defining things of parenthood. You can justify anything you did before being a parent, and any change afterwards can be completely explained and justified and socially accepted as, I became a parent, and nobody will give you shit about that, and you can personally let yourself change. For a lot of that stubbornness is a big reason why we have a hard time convincing people they're wrong, right? So if you have that easy excuse to just be like, this is the breaking point, and now I'm going to change. And all the people around me say, healthcare needs to be universal, and we hate guns, and we need to stop gun violence. And you can be like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to change on all of this.
I think it also has to do with, I think was mentioned, the people that they're surrounded with. They're gonna play to their peers, their audience.
But it's not even their audience that much. It is literally just the peers around them.
Well, but that's who their audience is. I mean, you think about they do those, all of those, the award shows and stuff. It's all themselves. Like they are just, it's all just patting ourselves on the back for how wonderful we all are.
It's just a big circle jerk.
Pretty much.
Isn't that a Hollywood, like, in a nutshell?
Yeah, they're just sanctimonious pricks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bunch of attention seekers who all get paid your godly sums of money to be attention seekers and be good at it, right? So it's hard to really blame them for being like, oh, we love attention and you've given us all this money. Hey, we're going to do more stuff for attention.
Yeah, but they're doing it for attention just for a few other people, for like-minded people. They're not doing it for attention to get attention from all of America. They don't give a crap about middle America.
I mean, I think they do, but in a weird way where they want to make middle America woke. And they
do, and that they want to. They feel they are, which is the start of this whole thing. They are morally superior, and they need to fix.
Yeah,
middle America.
That's the thing. If you are a Hollywood actor and you have made all of this money and you have all of this attention pointed at you and people pay attention to you and you can change the world with that, suddenly it justifies a whole lot of bad history and a whole lot of lack of contribution to anything in life.
Speaking of bad history, was that a good segue or not, Mark?
Go ahead.
It was until you stopped.
No, I wanted Mark to take over.
No, you guys. One of the things I learned when I watched, when I used to watch The Apprentice, there was one guy that was in the boardroom when they were, trying to fire someone, and he's like, "Why aren't you saying anything?" And the guy was like, "Well, one thing I learned in law school is not only when to speak, but when not to speak." And I like to just let you guys take it as much as you can. But that's a good lesson I learned. Yeah. I mean,
was that an attempted segue into Harvey Weinstein, their Minding Freedom?
Weinstein. Weinstein is Brett Weinstein from Evergreen College. That producer is called Weinstein.
Ah, okay.
Very important. Weinstein is good. Weinstein is bad.
Now, did you guys see Crowder's bit on this and his sort of take on where do you situate Weinstein in terms of the upper echelons of Hollywood? Is this the sort of pinnacle of what we're hearing, or is this just the leading edge of a wave which is just going to come deluging through?
Well, I keep running into these videos with that actor, and I don't recall seeing him in videos, but I've seen him. I don't remember calling him from movies, but I've seen him in these videos. It's Corey Feldman, and he was like on The View and in other shows, and he was explaining how
that View episode had to be a few years ago because Barbara Wawa was on it, and she hasn't been on. I don't think she's been on for a while, but yeah, Corey was he was one half of Corey Feldman and Corey Haim, essentially pretty big child stars in movies in the 80s.
I'm guessing they experienced sexual assaults and other things like that.
Well, that's pretty much what. Yeah.
And then even what was Milo? Part of his whole controversy was that he talked about a lot of underage stuff or what he perceived as underage people at these parties doing very adult things, and that he was kind of creeped out by it. But that he accepted it because he was a new guy in Hollywood, and that seems to be a recurring theme in all of these allegations. Is that people in subordinate positions didn't want to say anything because that would have been their career. That does kind of lead me more to this is going to be a tidal wave type deal of a lot of allegations, because this can't exist in a vacuum. Normal people would respond very badly to seeing the indicators of all of this.
Well, when Crowder was talking, he was looking at what's that actress who's won all the awards, who was very big on Roman Polanski, and she goes, "Poor Roman Polanski, because he's in jail and they just don't understand his art."
Meryl Streep.
Meryl Streep, yeah.
Yeah, and this is where it's once again a sort of a self-selecting population that has its own hazing rituals, and provided you've been through the hazing ritual, we no longer look into you too closely because you're one of us. And if you're one of us, the silence is something which actually binds you together and gives you your identity, even though it's negative identity.
I can see that.
To her mind, Roman Polanski essentially sodomizing an underage girl is fine, but Trump saying grab him by the pussy is the most offensive and horrible thing that has ever been, and it's abuse of power.
Stan, just for the record, I want to include something there. Donald Trump said they let you grab him by the pussy. They let you.
Yeah, exactly.
Adult women who go to a place to literally gold mine and try to be that one that you are after. That is what Trump was referring to.
Yeah. Trump's not going around. He wasn't going around meeting like the average mother figure. He's going around meeting people who are famous, doing whatever they can to get better connections. And then these aren't the type of people that you think of.
To be totally fair, Trump has very similar allegations against him with pretty much the same level of evidence as Weinstein. So I wouldn't totally dismiss everything that Trump has ever been accused of, but
isn't it kind of convenient that those disappeared right after the election? Isn't that kind of convenient?
No, I don't think it's convenient so much as all of these women waited too long. And this is sort of my big takeaway from all of this is the amount of people who wait to make these allegations makes it even harder, and it just perpetuates the whole thing. So,
it's cost benefit, Lex.
The left won't let the whole Russian thing go. That doesn't exist. The left media who's trying to grab and hold on to everything that they can get against Trump, just
including
let this all go.
But but here's the thing: the immediate response for the Trump allegations is, well, Clinton was more readily accused of, and there was better evidence for his crimes, and we ignored it then. We are just going to ignore it now. That is, and they have no defense against that. There is no way to be like, we've been consistent on this issue. And they can't be. And everyone is just in a bad moral place on it. So they all just accept it and they move on because they don't want to feel bad about themselves.
Well, there's another problem as well in that if we look at things like the modeling industry, acting, and any of those ones basically where you start young and they want you to look a certain way, you're taught to be deferential to your management, deferential to the people who are guiding your career right from the get-go. And so when you have managers who are essentially being like, this is the price for entry, and saying, well, didn't you trust me 5 years ago ago when we started? Well, I did then. So you should trust me now. We'll get places. We'll get to where you want to go. And so this is when Gwen Paltrow is saying like, oh, yeah, it happened to me, but my manager said this, that, and the other thing. So you actually have a system which is intentionally grooming people and intentionally putting them in such a place where it's like, the way you feel is more important than what actually happens. So it's like, if something terrible happens, but you come away from it, you're a better actor because you've made it through the gauntlet. Ergo, it was worth the cost. And so that's a tremendously silencing thing.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
I could see it, but then they should just then they should never say anything and just shut the hell up about it. I mean, if it's essentially the ends justify the means, then why is it a problem?
No. I will give full faith and credit to people who come around and say, we have been doing something wrong and this system needs to change. And if that is where Hollywood is at, I am all for that. Like, I will support that fully if they want to say, this has been wrong. And
I agree. It's the right. That's definitely how it should be played. I just, similarly, it's like the Bill Cosby thing.
Yeah.
Why did it? Why? I mean, okay. Can I know what it's, what they went through? No. But, it's like, what was the tipping point to where now when, Gwyneth Paltrow, Angelina Jolie, long past having any use for him. I mean, Gwyneth Paltrow, when she won her Academy Award, thanked him. So it's like, okay,
But that's the thing. So you've got this other reinforcing factor, especially for women in Hollywood, where, they get to, was it 32, 33, and their careers just slump off until they get to, becoming the grandmotherly figure where they can win Oscars again. So they have that early stage where they're very popular, and then the drop off, and they have to then totally rely on acting ability, and they have to wait decades again. So they're all in this weird position where they get to the top, and then they have to perpetuate that and get enough momentum to roll into that next phase.
And actually, that's where it's like the culture itself, which is produced. I would allege that many of the actresses who are now coming forth have at times, either directly or indirectly, said to young actresses, well, you just have to put up with it and things will get better.
Agreed.
And I think that's a horrible thing.
I wouldn't surprise me in the least.
If this is a systemic thing, and this isn't just a lot of allegations that are coming for self advancement, which is a very big possibility. But if that is not the case, this is a systemic thing. I don't think the system exists without those women supporting it in that way. The men in this industry cannot create the system to reinforce it properly without that in-group preference or in-group mentality supporting it too. I totally agree with you there.
And the other thing is, when you're talking about people who can make lots of money very quickly, having the money is no longer the end goal. What you're trying to get out of an exchange is something which has value that nobody else can get. So because I am Harvey Weinstein, I can get X, Y, and Z, allegedly. Or because I am a manager for
the Rovertime has an exclusive with Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah. But the thing is, it's like, because I'm like a manager for a rock star group, or like, let's say a female rock star group, I can get things which no one else can get. And so it becomes a sort of breeding ground for those people who are predacious and possibly sort of sociopathic to begin with, and then it gives them an opportunity to try and get things which they can hold over other people and actually basically say, look at how many notches I have on my belt, in a way that no one else could do. So it's like, I am the person who created this particular actor, plus I'm the one who christened them into this sort of sexual deviance, which we're all a part of and party to. So you have both, you can claim their fame plus what you did to them. And that's a really terrible thing.
God, wow. Talking to you about this just makes me so much more depressed about this entire story.
Yeah.
Well, what do you foresee for Hollywood? Do you think it's crumbling?
No, I don't think there's any. Yeah, there's no mechanic to make it crumble.
No, it's as much as they have experienced and gotten through many scandals. Harvey. I'm sure he's already replaced, and they've moved on, and they'll just tell everyone, we've learned, we'll be better. But I guarantee it's still going on fairly prevalently, and will continue to do so.
I have an oddball prediction, and I know this is going to become a meme with me because I've been gone for 3 weeks, and now, of course, I'm going to go right back to Sticks and Hammers theory that Hollywood will become the moral police and they will become the religious right in not too long, and I think this might be the start of it. I think that this will be an inflection point for them where they are going to eschew all of this.
Crow, you had something to say.
I think that Hollywood is crumbling because if you look at their revenues, that's what it shows.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, most likely, I mean, just my opinion, the rate it's crumbling, I'll be long in the ground before it reaches a breaking point where they would be like, oh shit, we have to do something.
I want to rephrase the question though. Do you think Hollywood, as we know it, is crumbling? Because I think it's a ripe opportunity for more conservative people to try to jump in there and change it.
No. It won't be more conservative. It won't be more conservative people. It will be the same people that are going to survive this that don't have anything against them. They will just suddenly become exceptionally pious and very judgmental about everyone in the universe and what they do in their personal lives. They will imbue their own morality onto it in a very sanctimonious way.
I'd say that's already happened.
It has, but they've been up until today, or up until this scandal, sort of. They have been very much on they'll defend people like Roman Polanski. They will, pedophilia might be okay. What is the age of consent really? It's just a number. Like these kind of things. That's all going to go out the window. They are going to just start imposing their own moral ideals on them with no real justification in the way that, say, the religious do or, civic conservatives do. They're just going to say, this is what we believe, and you're all horrible people if you don't believe it equally. And they're going to drop the pretense that they have any moral superiority. They're just going to start dictating it. And they're going to do that in a very hard way for a while.
So basically Hollywood sucks. Let's move on.
Yeah, and what, and do what, even to go with Crow, Crow saying that, it pisses me off because I used to really enjoy TV and movies, and now they have to inject these things into fucking everything and ruin it. It's like, why can't I just watch a movie? Why can't I just watch a TV show without having some little, shot in there or, Eminem or, music? It's like, y'all have to be just dance, monkeys. Just dance. Don't ruin it for me. And they've all ruined it. Yes, I'm bitter.
Well,
because I can't watch. It's like there's so many things. I'm like, I can't watch this now because you're fucking crazy. I can't watch this now because you're fucking crazy.
Stan, I completely understand you. I've never been a big TV or movie guy. But I've always been a big sports guy. Look at what the NFL is doing right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, like 2 weeks ago, I'm at a restaurant, sitting at the bar having dinner, and I see two guys probably in their 60s, just loving the football games, like heads on a swivel, looking from game to game to game. Probably have one of them's wearing a hat with the American flag on it. Probably no clue about the kneeling, and I'm like, that's how I used to be. I used to love sports and football, and they've ruined that too.
Well, if it's any consolation, Stan, people agree with you. If you look at the stands, they're emptying out week by week.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And speaking of kneeling, it's a virus. It's spreading now.
Is Merkel really worried about losing her position, so she's willing to go Monica Lewinsky? Is that what we're going to talk about kneeling?
No, that's not what happened. But maybe you guys saw it. A German soccer team on Saturday was kneeling before the game.
I heard about that, yeah.
Oh, my God.
And funny enough, it's the team of the city I live in.
Well, they're probably, protesting the abuses of the immigrants in Germany because they're clearly an what's the word I'm looking for?
They're not getting enough welfare.
Yeah, an abused class. Typical
well,
Germans.
I'm reading what they tweeted out. They said, "Our club stands for tolerance and responsibility."
While kneeling.
I'm not done. I'm not done. it's
Really,
just funny.
they could have stopped there, and it's still
but
laughable.
it goes on. It goes on. That's the funny thing. For a tolerant Berlin and an open-minded world, now and forevermore. # take a knee.
Oh my God! What a bunch of sanctimonious pricks! A very tolerant world where America's gonna have to save Western Europe from Germany again.
Yeah, and you know what the most what the funniest thing about this is? The anthem
Third time in a century.
The anthem isn't even played before soccer games in Germany. So
they
weren't kneeling during the anthem.
Well,
they were just kneeling for a photo.
Well, see, then you know what? I actually have less problem with that, because it's like, okay, there's no anthem. So it's not, so it really truly is, granted, it's ridiculous,
it's
but
signaling, it's grandstanding.
It's absolutely all of that, but at least, with no anthem, it's like, okay, we chose to do this, that type of a thing. I find that, yes, 100% everything you said, Minding, but less ridiculous than kneeling for the anthem, since they don't even have one.
I think my ideas on this might have changed a little bit over the last couple of weeks, where I've kind of gotten to the point where, as long as they're not saying things that I actually disagree with, I kind of just can let it go at this point. Like, they say nothing demonstrably horrible. Like, oh, they want tolerance and unity, and okay, cool. These are platitudes, but they're corporate employees doing this for corporate image. So I don't blame media. I don't blame a marketing dude for being like, our thoughts and prayers are with the victims of this tragic accident and wherever the hell it is that we have some tangential connection to. I don't bemoan anyone for being like, our hearts are with the survivors of Hurricane Harvey, and we're going to do what we can to help. And that's all just PR bullshit too, right? So this is the same thing, where this is all just PR bullshit, especially for
It's political grandstanding, though, and a lot of people don't like it, because we all know what tolerance means. Tolerance means that you have to tolerate this wave of migrants coming into Europe and leeching off the welfare system.
that's what they say, but at the same time, we can be just as tolerant of other things and say that's tolerance, kiss our asses, and we're the majority.
And having said that, I'd rather all of this kneeling as opposed to, Ferguson, Baltimore.
That makes sense.
That's what I've said. Like, look, I may not like it, but I would 1,000% rather you just take a knee, while you're protesting the guys that you're standing, they're standing in front of you, protecting you, but whatever, opposed to, the mass riots and millions and millions of dollars of damage. So
better kneeling in a stadium than standing in the middle of a freeway, right?
Right, exactly.
Right now, the left is notorious for not wanting any middle ground. So why should we sue for middle ground?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I don't think it's a middle ground to take the very principled stance that, okay, you guys are peaceful. You're not saying you're not asking for violence. Cool, do what you want. I think that is our absolutist position.
May I just have two quick updates or information? Let's say. First thing is, the coaches and managers of the team knelt as well. So this to me looks like it was kind of ordered down from the management onto the players.
Fair enough.
And this is the funniest thing. The English Twitter account of that club retweeted Talcum X himself, Sean King.
Oh God! See, now they can just fuck off, okay? Because now they just completely lost. And you're gonna retweet that human waste of space.
This is what we were we were talking about this before the show. If you're not, in the internet zeitgeist, you may not know who he is, and he speaks in a lot of, genuine or decently honest platitudes. They were, yeah, that sounds all well and good until you know the context that he is. Like, he'll do like 4 tweets in a row, and like the third one's fine. It's just the other 3 around it tell you exactly what he thought about it. And if you just take the one in the middle, he sounds perfectly fine. You put in the other 3, and you're like, oh, you would be a KKK member, 40 years ago. But
I mean, he could still be a KKK member from his skin color.
I mean, his opinion of black people too, just not for nothing. He has really low expectations of any black person.
The only thing I'd add to is we're talking about industries and also athletes who are put as a team first, and they're told to think as being part of the team. And in that context, I would say they're dumber as a whole than they are as individuals. But because it's being sold to them as something which they can share in with another team and other teams across the pond, as it were, they would unreflectively do this because it's like, what context are they basing their kneeling on? Because they go, it's like, okay, in terms of what rights are being impinged, what things are being impugned, and why is it that you can't actually come up with an original way to protest something in Germany which you might not like? So it just sort of smacks of the fact that if you're on a team, you're in a team sport, you do as the team leads, and you're sort of at your starting point less critical than someone who is not in your shoes.
True, but that feels like you're looking for a deeper reasoning than they wanted to have a good press moment. And like, we're all sitting here talking about German football, which outside of minding, I don't think any of us would have cared about before this, right?
Who gives a shit? Jesus
And
Christ.
You guys don't follow Bundesliga? Oh my goodness.
Moving on.
One more, let's say a little bit of karma to end this. The team lost the game 2-0.
Beautiful. All right.
But yeah, I've got some more stories from Germany. I think we can make this a quick one. The conservative wing of Merkel's Christian Democratic Union demands that she resigns.
Is this over? Is this over the gay marriage?
No. This is over. There was an election today in Lower Saxony, and the Christian Democrats lost badly.
I mean, how many elections do you freaking have over there? Criminy.
It's a state election, okay?
All right, fine. And the bottom line is Angela Merkel should be ousted. I mean, her immigration policy and energy policy alone are just enough to just kill her.
I agree. I totally agree. And I made a video on that before. I said this might be the end of Merkel, and now the conservatives. This is just another puzzle piece. And it's all coming together. I think she's not gonna be able to form the next government. We had an election 3 weeks ago on the federal level. She's not gonna
every week.
Election every week.
No, I think the next election is in March 2018 in another state, like a small state or something. I don't know.
Oh my god.
Yeah, we have this irregularly, like always, like every 6 months or so, we have another state election somewhere. It's not that every election is on the same day like you have. I think like the only possibility to form a government for her is a Jamaica coalition, according to the parties. I think I explained that 3 weeks ago. So.
Is a Jamaica coalition just we want to legalize pot? Like, is that?
I feel like that would be part of it because the classical liberals are for it, the Greens are for it, and well, Merkel and her Christian Democrats they might be like, yeah, we don't care. So that might happen if that coalition comes together. That might happen, but I don't see that coalition coming together.
Yeah.
Because the differences are too big on immigration.
On literally everything that matters, because pot really doesn't, or it shouldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. But yeah, that was just a quick update and another puzzle piece in the ousting of Merkel, basically.
Now here's a weird transition for me, at least. So in the States, the Scouts have finally caught up with us in Canada and allowed girls to join the Scouts.
Why on earth would you want girls in the Boy Scouts? Just join the Girl Scouts.
And apparently that vote among the people who were in charge of the Boy Scouts was unanimous. So what the heck?
They got taken over a while ago, so it's not hideously surprising.
Just join the Eagle Scouts if you want to co-ed scouts. Jesus.
No,
Adventure Scouts.
For me personally, what I have an issue with more so is that there should be places where you can be going in to hang out with people your own age and your own sex, and it should be something which is both allowed and promoted, and it shouldn't be seen as being divisive that is the case.
No, I agree.
What is it besides the name that is causing a difference? So what is it that Girl Scouts weren't allowed to do that Boy Scouts are?
I think it's not necessarily that they weren't. I think generally the Boy Scouts, it seemed to be more, for lack of a better description, getting out there and doing things. You know, the Girl Scouts, essentially, it feels like most of what they do is about like fundraising, and you know
that's their fault. You know, fix the Girl Scouts.
Well, I understand that. You know, but I think that's what the difference is you know, the boys are going out and they're doing camping and they're doing this and they're doing that, and the Girl Scouts typically haven't been doing that stuff.
Well,
arts and crafts, cookies and shit. You know, arts and crafts, cookies, knitting, and all that shit.
Whoa, hold on. This is like the Girls Life, Boys Life magazine thing, where everyone's like, "Oh, these things should be equal," except they're not owned by the same company. They are not done by the same group of people. They don't have the same goals. Literally, the only similarity they have is in a name and the fact they started at roughly the same time. But they both have very different goals and even age groups. Like Girl Scouts don't. There's no, like, as far as I know, there's no real growth plan in it for leadership. Like, there is no Eagle Scout equivalent.
But that's the whole capitalist vision, though, is to start your own thing. Don't co-opt someone else's thing.
And like Crow brought up, there's the Adventure Scouts, which are co-ed, and they do all the same things that the Boy Scouts do, and some argue in a better way because I think they have less of a religious bent to them. I don't know. I think the Boy Scouts may have sort of started moving away from that too, which might be a negative for a lot of them. I know the Mormon Church moved away from the Boy Scouts as well now. I heard about that earlier this year.
Well, this is a bit of a cultural difference as well, because in Canada, Scouts Canada and Guides Canada are actually very closely affiliated with one another, and I do like the idea of having the co-ed stuff. Absolutely, for sure. And so it's funny watching what's going on in the States, because when we hear like Scouts, we think of, oh yeah, these things are two similar but equal groups that have slightly different orientations because of the interests of the people involved. But in Scouts Canada, in Scouts in the States, is it actually a privatized company?
Both are separate privatized companies that have nothing to do with each other. They are not connected at all.
Yeah.
So like any idea that should be any similarity between these groups is totally fictitious. Arguably, the Girl Scouts is actually just a for-profit company that has a lot of child labor issues. That is definitely a way you could look at Girl Scouts. But
there's nothing wrong with child labor.
Well, their sales force, their sales forces, like at this point, they're a branding company. Let's be honest, but that is a legitimate argument that Girl Scouts is not a great organization. And if I had a daughter, I would not put her into the Girl Scouts. But at the same time, there have been periods in the Boy Scouts history where I would say the same thing. I don't know if right now they would. I don't keep up on it enough. But the Boy Scouts is also a really minor group in the U.S. even now, and they've been waning in popularity, which is, I think, a bigger reason that they're willing to make these changes at an organizational level.
The only thing that Girl Scouts are good for is putting Thin Mints in my belly.
Well, I was going to say, like, what is to your guys?
Send your hate mail to @MarkWazz on Twitter.
What's wrong with Thin Mints?
In your guys' mind, though,
it's just him saying the only thing they're good for. I don't care. I agree with it. As long as they keep making the cookies, I don't really give a shit who they let in and what they do.
But in your guys' mind, what is the purpose of these things? So historically, it's to educate young men and young women about citizenship in ways that schools couldn't. But with the proliferation of like youth groups, youth organizations, and rec centers with youth-related activities after school, what purpose do these organizations actually serve that can't be catered to in other ways?
I just don't care. I just don't like the whole PC bullshit where we have to have inclusion in that. Just make a new Scouts. Jesus.
Well, they did. That's the thing. We have Adventure Scouts. We have tons of other groups and organizations that do different things. Like in areas where Boy Scouts were really popular, 4-H is still very popular and does all the same things and has always been co-ed. Like for very rural, farm-oriented areas. So like, there's the thing. The Scouts have never been like this pillar of Americana as people want to make it out to be. That is a lot of marketing, and just the fact that we had a lot of presidents who went through scouting. Not that there's anything wrong with scouting or Eagle Scouts, and like all of the people that go through that generally have a lot of skill sets, and it does teach some perseverance. But it's just not just core pillar of Americanism that the Scouts kind of try to position themselves as, and Girl Scouts are even less so. Like, but that's the thing. We have these other options. We don't need these groups to be monolithic or ubiquitous or have these structured rules. I do agree that we could probably use some male spaces where young boys can kind of figure out what the hell they're doing, because young boys are retarded and do stupid things, and excluding them from the rest of society while they figure all that stuff out is probably okay, and probably for the best, if only for their own embarrassment later on.
Yeah, no, it's like I went through Scouts here, and like for me, it was never really something which I latched onto. You seem to get badges by sort of basically osmosis. It's like you kind of can sort of do this, therefore you get a badge. It's like, all right, yay, I'm still here next week. Mm-hmm. But it's also something where I think it's sort of a dying utility. So where does Scouts come out of? Well, it comes out of an era where industrialization was happening quite heavily. Leisure time wasn't really something that was thought of for kids, and you needed some way of getting Dad and little Johnny or little Bill to actually have some time together. And whether or not that's true, that's what they've marketed themselves as, and that's how they sort of seen it. But in sort of the age of digital technology and like kids that can organize their own meetup groups and things like that, it seems increasingly irrelevant unless you're trying to build a certain type of ethic into an age group.
Yeah, I honestly don't care about this stuff. Just whatever, say whatever you want, move on.
Yeah, it's like I don't disagree with that as a goal, but I think that has to kind of be a starting point for an organization. Whereas the Scouts have sort of morphed into where they are today. And you can see that. By like 10 years ago, they were very hardcore against any homosexuals being involved, anything transgendered, and definitely not for any sort of integration gender-wise. And now they're pretty much reversed on all that.
Crow, you have a new topic?
Yep.
Yeah, rapid fire your thoughts. Rapid fire them.
Okay, yeah, sure. When it comes to Jimmy Kimmel's anti-gun rant, there are a lot of things in it that piss me off so goddamn much. First and foremost, when he said that the NRA has the Republicans' balls in a money clip, that's just bullshit. Okay, do you know how much they gave to Paul Ryan in the last election? $6,000 for fuck's sake. That's nothing.
Yeah, Crow, to back that up, someone had put out a thing where I think in the last like 20 some years they've given the Republican Party like $3 million in 20 years.
And that's not even to one person. That's like
no, to the whole thing. So you're absolutely right. It's laughable that they say that.
Yeah, the reason why it's powerful is it has almost 5 million members, for fuck's sake. That's a huge voting bloc.
I think we went over this last week. We said that's the equivalent because of the amount of members in the NRA. That's like every person giving 66 cents.
Exactly.
Well, that's like, it's not the NRA specifically giving the money. It is those 5 million members who are politically active, who have disposable income, and are willing to donate it to numerous candidates. One upper middle class NRA member supporting you as a candidate means you and everyone you recommend to him is going to get a $100 check, right? That's what they're talking about. They don't explain it very well because they don't want to get into what campaign finance reform has done to politics and why those guys are so important now, whereas they weren't that important 15 years ago before McCain-Feingold.
Well, for me, because I'm not American, I try and take it out of the context of just guns. And what I see with gun control and a lot of arguments that are being put forward is this idea that we can't trust humans, ergo we need to take away things which are dangerous and prevent them from actually gaining any sort of skills or any sense of pride at being able to do something well, because that's dangerous, because humans are dumb. And I think that's one of the biggest dangers of our particular time is we have globalists, we have corporate cultures, which are literally trying to take away things which we have to work towards to be good at. And when it comes to things like guns, you need the education out there, and you need people to feel pride about, I maintain my weapons, I put them away safely, I know I'm a trustworthy person because I prove it every day. I have something which is dangerous, but no one will ever be in danger from what I'm doing. And it's like, we need to actually support that idea that humans can skill themselves and actually become competent. So it's like, we teach you how to drive because we expect you to become a good driver, and you should actually have pride in your sense of good driverness. But it seems that in our culture, they're just trying to get rid of that wholesale.
Yeah, and then on top of that, there was this whole thing about the no-fly list. You know, I don't support taking away someone's constitutional rights just because the government puts it on a fucking list. Okay, I mean, the Fifth Amendment clearly states that no one shall be denied life, liberty, or property without due process of law. The no-fly list goes against that entirely. So that's a violation of the Fifth Amendment, right?
And they try to make it sound as like it's common sense, but it's
not common
ridiculous
sense. Exactly.
argument.
No.
I want to remind you that Ted Kennedy was on the no-fly list. You want to take away Ted Kennedy's guns?
Actually,
Exactly.
kind of. Yeah. No. I'm actually kind of okay with that. He has killed people. Just
I
saying.
would say anyone that starts with it or that ends a sentence with "it's just common sense" should immediately never be allowed to have any sort of debate with anybody, because we started, my common sense and your common sense and Lex's common sense, we might be similar, but vastly different. So there's nothing common about it.
Yeah, we see that in the United States, since the 90s, gun laws have gotten much looser, especially with the Heller decision, when the Supreme Court finally admitted that, yes, the Second Amendment is the right of the people to keep and bear arms. You know, just like it says in the Second Amendment, the right of the people. So once that ruling was issued, gun laws got massively loosened because cities were no longer allowed to ban guns because it is the right of the people to keep and bear arms. Gun laws have gotten...
That's so basically Steven Crowder goes, he's like, why would they write that at all? Like, why wouldn't the military already have the right to have guns? Like, what have we been doing? We've been going at them with sporks. We need to have guns. Like
exactly.
It's, of course it's for the people. The military's gonna have it, like, of course. Yeah,
so basically since the 90s, gun laws have loosened. We see that gun ownership is up. There are more guns in the United States than ever before, both in total and per person. We see that in the United States, oh, give me a second. I'm busy. So basically, she just came in. So basically, the bottom line is gun laws have loosened. Gun ownership is up in the United States. We see that there are more guns than ever before, both in total and per person. In the United States, millions of guns are made every single year by individuals who can buy all the components online with no background check whatsoever. You can buy an unfinished receiver and basically fill in the holes yourself. And you could do all of this online with no background check whatsoever. Millions of guns are made this way every single year.
Legally. That's legally too, because you are allowed to machine your own firearms. You only need the serial number for commercial purposes.
A finished receiver, yeah. If you buy a finished receiver online, you need a serial number. But if you have an unfinished receiver, you can do it untraced, no background check, completely legal. Millions of guns are made that way. So even though we have all of this progress improving the Second Amendment, since 1994, the homicide rate has been cut in half. Okay, and the violent crime rate has gone down by more than 70%. So when you give me this shit that more guns means more crime, fuck off with that nonsense.
No, that's thinking, but then you're getting into a correlation causation thing where I'm feeling that crime rates in general and violent crime rates in general are not really well correlated with guns, period. But at the same time, I will never say that just having more guns around is going to decrease crime all on its own. It still is a definite personal thing where people have to be willing to be both stand up to crime, not participating in crime, taking other avenues other than being criminal. So like, I agree that it's a bullshit argument to say that, more guns equal more deaths, but it's also equally bullshit argument that we often make too many times that more guns equals more safety. It's all about the user, and we have to make sure we are really, really consistent on that. Otherwise, the left calls you out on it, and it gets messy to try to do that when it spikes again, which it will.
Well,
I know, but
the irony is most of these things for control and regulation, they're actually highly successful. So it's like the fact that we regulate driving, the fact that there are some firearms regulations. The issue for the politicians is that because they are successful, they have to grasp at increasingly small straws. A good book to actually look into on this is by Steven Pinker called The Angels of Our Better Nature, where he looks at how the world is actually getting better, but if we look at our politics and our media, they're like, it's actually getting worse and worse and more terrible. And it's like, well, point to the numbers that say it's getting more terrible. Like, well, if we point to the numbers, then we don't have an argument. And it's like, well, yeah, then you don't have an argument. And it's like, well, you say we don't have an argument, so that's hateful. And it's just like, wait, what? like, shouldn't you be proud of the fact that we live in a better world now?
Exactly.
Brief aside, it's like people
race.
who say, I don't want to have kids because Trump's in office. I'm like, so you don't want to have kids in the time in North America where we have decreasing amounts of crime, we have better life expectancy, we have better health care, and you're saying just because the president is someone you don't agree with, ergo you don't want to have kids. It's like, that sounds like a bit of a straw man to me.
Yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous. And here's the
If
thing.
if someone says that, I agree they shouldn't have kids. So I mean,
Fair.
really, if that's their rationale, you know what? I'm with you. Don't have any.
That's good. Go ahead.
We're back to self-selecting groups that I'm kind of okay with.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though. When it comes to crime in the United States, here's a politically incorrect fact that a lot of people don't like to say. Yeah, and here's the thing. I'm Hispanic myself, so when I say this, I'm not saying this out of any animosity towards my own race. So the bottom line is that if you take a look in the United States, if you completely remove blacks and Hispanics from the equation entirely, just completely remove blacks and Hispanics, then our homicide rate would be about 1.47 per 100,000. So about the same as Europe's on average. So maybe even, because that's in spite of the fact that whites own the most guns per capita. So perhaps guns are not the problem. Maybe there's a cultural issue at hand here. Okay, so this idea that guns are an issue, it's really just not borne out in the data.
So here's the thing. Take another look at it, and I think the actual real problem that we get to is that we don't trust government. Because honestly, we'd have a much better world if we did track all guns and if they were registered and if we could know who has firearms and we'd use them. But we can't, because honestly, I don't trust our government not to be like, yep, we're going to go seize all that so we can do shady shit. And they'll do it in a much longer time frame, and they won't put it in those words. But that's our key issue. No one trusts government.
Well, and there's things which are so far ahead of the government's ability to rein them in. So in Canada, about 9 years ago, we tried to institute a accurate gun registry. And just trying to get all the serial numbers of all the guns in our nation basically bankrupted the institution which we created to actually register guns. And so it's like there's some things which are too far out ahead to logistically actually be able to rein them in. And that's frustrating, but that seems to be a limitation.
But that's going to be a diminishing problem. Every year that will get less and less of an issue. And then we're going to only be faced with the actual crux of it, that if you have a government, and Canada's government might be a little bit better on this front, because of the way it's structured. It's a little harder to have the kind of level of corruption that we do in the U.S. But I really do fear that if we have a nationalized database of all the gun owners in America, there will be a point where somebody says, hey, let's go round all those up because guns are bad. And they'll have enough support. And if they get just enough support in the military, they can make that happen. And if they don't, it's a civil war. And that's a really bad scenario to get into. But that's why I would never want to have that sort of a complete registered database, or have the thing where you can't manufacture your own guns. When we get to that point, we start setting ourselves up for really dramatically horrible shit to happen.
And 3D printers are only getting better soon.
Oh yes, when 3D printers can fully make guns, oh my god, that would be the day. I would love it.
And there are already metal 3D printers, but there are a few $1,000s that can work with metal sand. But I mean, over time, only get cheaper.
Yeah, I don't know if you want a gun out of that though. But the same thing, a CNC machine is not new technology. Guns are built by robots right now.
Yeah, but I mean, it's only getting cheaper as time goes on.
Right, yeah, that's it. We're now into the point where people are more comfortable machining out their own equipment in their own home with various materials, and that's only going to get easier and better over time. So whether it's a 3D printer or a CNC or any other number of automated systems that will build perfectly engineered items from 3D files, yeah, that's going to get really scary really quickly.
It's not going to get scary. The vast majority of guns are not used to kill anyone.
Oh yeah, no, but the people who are going to do, you don't worry about the vast majority of people doing anything. It's the one motherfucker who, suddenly feels really empowered because he's in his basement and can do anything there, and he comes up with a plan to become famous. That's the guy that kind of worries me more about anything.
You're more likely to get struck by lightning than die in a mass shooting.
Apparently you have a topic you want to bring up. Something about a hoax? What's this?
Yeah. If you know Beauty and the Beta, there is a now weekly segment called Hoax Hate of the Week. And Matt is always wondering how he can keep it up every week. There is now some hoax hate from Germany. and I want to show you if I can. There's unfortunately only some German article from BuzzFeed actually, but we all know
Minding,
BuzzFeed.
post the
However,
link in chat so that Mark can actually post it, because you can't share your screen.
I can't. Oh,
Well,
shit.
you can share your screen, but I have to lock it on you.
Okay.
Present to everyone.
I can post it in chat myself. There we go. We have this post, this Facebook post from Leo Fischer, who is a member of a satirical political party in Germany. Yeah, we do have that. And he's writing a Frankfurt member of city parliament, however you want to call that, has been beaten on the Frankfurt Book Fair. Is that how you can call it? Yeah. Because he was protesting against Nazis at that book fair. The Frankfurt police stood next to him and didn't do anything. Then they asked him for ID, and not for ID from the Nazis. And then we get a photo. Then we get a photo like this. That was one of the scenes that happened there. This is the politician from Frankfurt. Let's see. Here's his name, Nico Veneman. He was the one who was beaten. He's not on that picture. The guy in the blue, whatever that is, like the blue athletic jacket or whatever you want to call it. And he was tweeting himself, and he says, "A Nazi on me, private security taking me down, police looking at it, or police standing next to it." And so he was accusing the guy who was on him here to be a Nazi. Now this is the guy, Nico Veneman, his Twitter profile. And then we got a journalist, Jonas Fedders, who says, "Dear Nico Veneman, when I provided you that picture, I told you explicitly that the man on you is a civil policeman, not a Nazi."
Oh my god.
Yeah. And Police Frankfurt is getting into this. They're tweeting, no employee of the the first tweet here says it was an employee of the Frankfurt Book Fair, not a policeman and not a Nazi. And then they correct themselves. He wasn't an employee of the book fair either. He was a private security guy of the Frankfurt Fair. So the company who's basically managing the whole building and everything. And now we've got video. I hope I can play this. I hope people can see this.
I see a black screen. I don't know. Let me try to fix this real quick.
Okay, that's not good.
No.
Anyway, I can share the wait. You just see a black screen, nothing else.
That's what I see.
Oh shit. That's not good. I'm gonna end this and try to start it again.
You have to have it opened in a separate Google Chrome.
I know, I do. Does it work now?
I see your logo.
We might have to let it go for another week there. I know, Stan, are you having to go mod for Beauty and the Beta soon?
Yeah, I gotta go to the bathroom too. I know everyone wanted to hear that.
Yeah. Anyway, the link is in the chat, and there's a video, and there are 2 GIFs. It's just enough to look at the GIFs. This Nico Veneman, he's the guy in the blue jacket. You can see him pretty easily, and it's really fun. Like, it's in German, so you don't understand a lot, but the pictures tell the whole story basically.
All right. Well, if you're in the chat, click on that link, I guess. And I guess that's it for us this week, right?
Yes, sir.
Had a fun-filled day.
Yeah, I think it was good. Share the rap we did, and watch Beauty and the Beta next in 15 minutes. And watch us next week. Have a good night.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Later.